What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Black Professionals Project. My name is Kenton Hipsher. Hopefully you know by now. It's been quite a few episodes, but if you don't, I am the CEO and founder of the nonprofit. And our mission is to educate and inspire Black and Brown youths by exposing them to the professional journeys and careers of Black and Brown professionals. And so today we have with us a wonderful professional who's living her life, living her best life, I should say, just coming back off of a vacay. She's glowing right now. She's got the natural hair just booming, and we all love it. And I'm so happy to have her on the platform. Welcome, Miss Robin.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate you joining us and being open to share your story and your journey on the platform because, it's very important for the youth and other professionals to see ourselves in all areas of business and in the world. And so I'm happy to have you on here, but I don't want to add any extra sugar to it. I know it's going to be great anyway. So let's get it started. Will you please tell the people a little bit about yourself, describe your profession and the industry that you work in?
Sure. So my name is Robin Melissa Watkins. I am a product developer in the beauty and wellness space. So I make products behind the scenes, and I'm also the founder of Holistic Beauty Group. And what that is a product development consultancy. So we help, emerging and mature brands navigate through the product development landscape from concept to launch. So product development pretty much captures concept definition, your formulation process, your sourcing of your packaging, your design, all the way through technology sourcing and ingredients, taking it through testing, taking your product through safety testing, making sure it's okay and safe for human skin, and all the way through claims substantiation. So we do claims design as well. So if you want to make those claims that, hey, this product, strengthens your hair by X%, you have to test that. So we help administer that type of testing too, all the way through your launch. So we handle that full cycle of product development externally for brands. And so a little bit about my background, I've been in product development for going on 18 years now in the corporate beauty space. So I started off working with, major brands. And so I've been behind the scenes doing cross-category product development, from fine fragrance to color cosmetics to OTC sun care to hair care to baby care, like you name it, I've done it, wellness. And ultimately, landed at Estee Lauder. It was my last big corporate role, and I was doing global product development there. And in that role, I was responsible for a team, and I had to travel a lot. And at the time, I had, a very small child. My son, who's 4 now, he was just turning 2, and I was off to Europe. I was in Europe maybe 6 times in 1 year, missed his 2nd birthday, wow. Missed my mom's 70th birthday. I just missed so much in my career just building it. And I just thought to myself, you know what, I want to redesign my life and really own my time and do projects that align with my personal values and actually help those brands succeed that really had more of a healing intention and wanted to do things the clean way, the sustainable way, the way of the future. So I felt like I was very much a part of that new wave. I understood that consumer, so I launched Holistic Beauty Group to service those types of brands. And so now we are here, and I have to say it's been really, really crazy. I'm really, really blessed. A lot of people are like, how did you do it? And all this stuff, but we can get into all that later. I think ultimately you have to choose. I think, we get our good experience in the corporate landscape, but ultimately you can take that experience and really connect it to your passion and your purpose and do something that feels right for your life. And so that's a little bit about me and what I do at Holistic Beauty Group.
That's crazy. You've done everything.
I know it's confusing. Product development is the most people cannot understand. They're like, what is it that you do again? It's so confusing, but yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. It's good for people to be exposed to that kind of language too, because we'll break it down here on the show, and so it's good for us to put it out there up front.
Yes.
So yeah, I know you do you've done literally like every single product I could possibly think of in my head. And the fact that you're so passionate about clean products and natural products and something that's scientifically backed is something that really resonates with me. And that's why I work for the company that I work for today. So it's really cool that, we were able to connect and make this happen. So once again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But let's move forward into a little bit more about your background and your history. So can you tell everybody what your ethnicity is and where your hometown is? What do you represent now here?
Yes, thank you for asking that. Wonderful question. I love it. I'm an African American. Okay. I come from a line of ancient merchants in Africa. And I know that through doing my DNA history, and I'm very obsessed with it. And I come from a line of women who heal. So merchants and healers is really what my, bloodline really consists of. And so that's something I'm super passionate about. And that's why I always link things to a healing intention. It's really important for me. Growing up, I'm originally from Pasadena, California, Southern California. And my family moved us to the IE when I was pretty young. So I grew up mostly in Fontana, which is in the Inland Empire, where I live today. I still live in the Inland Empire, and my offices are in Claremont, which is right on the border of the Inland Empire in LA County. So that's where I live. I'm the youngest out of 5. And, I think that really did shape who I am a bit, because, I'm what you call an older millennial. And however, my siblings are Xers. So I kind of saw them, going to college, racking up debt. One of my oldest brothers is 50 years old, and he just paid off his student loan debt.
Wow.
He just paid off his student loan debt. And so when I sort of came up, when I was college bound, they were kind of like, you know what, little sis, you need to do something you love. Like, you need to do something you really love, something that you're really passionate about. My family is very creative, but also very smart. Some of my siblings are extremely genius, but also creative, and they're like, flex that creativity, and that's the path I took. So when my first job was actually, my mom was an Avon lady. Avon was her side hustle. And I was a latchkey kid. I used to come home and, she'd have boxes all the way up to the ceiling. And it was my job to unpack those boxes and bag them up for her customers. And as I was doing that, I used to explore the product. I would look at the bubble bath. I would look at the lipstick. I would test things. I would swatch things, how they do now on social media. I was doing that when I was like 11 years old. And I would, slang product at school. My mom would pay me in product, and I would bring samples to school and hand out lipsticks to my friends and do makeovers. And I was very deeply immersed in product from a young age. And I could tell when they would change a formula, when they changed the package, and I would read the ingredient listings, and I would ask those questions, and I would look it up. And it actually, encyclopedia, I'm like dating myself now, but that's what I was doing. And that kind of led me into this mindset of there's something behind the scenes here that I want to get involved in. So
a hustler at a young age. I can definitely appreciate that for sure. And it's great to know that, you got the opportunity to see older people and see them go through the full college process, the work life process, try to manage the work life, and really got the advice down from them saying like, hey, let's stop here for a second, figure out what you want to do instead of just going through the emotions, and then work towards that, because that's the ultimate goal. And that's really the big goal of this platform, right? Is to really just focus in on what you all, the audience, want to do, try to learn your passion, try to see the pathways that people have gone down and how they've navigated the route to get to where they are, and then try to follow in those footsteps or create your own based off of what they've done. You know, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. So it's awesome that you're like a living testimony of that. And that's so cool. And you carved out your own lane really by, you know, being helpful. I'm sure at first in the beginning, you're just like, well, I'm gonna have to do this anyway. So I might as well just like enjoy it. So that's super cool. I'm so happy about that. Your story is so exciting and encouraging for me, especially just hearing it again and again and again is great every time. But moving past that, so you know you've gone through the work life, and then you've gotten to this point in your life where you're trying to make a decision. Okay, how do I transition from the, I guess, working for somebody into working for myself? So let's talk a little bit about that. How was that transition for you, going from being an employee to being a boss?
It was hard. And I think the hardest part about it was fear. And, you know, it sounds super cliche, but, you know, when people always tell you believe in yourself, and that's so important, that's so powerful, is to really believe in yourself. But sort of back up, because I kind of skipped a step when I was telling you about my background. When I first started off in the industry, I ended up going to FIDM, and I went to FIDM. They have the Fashion Institute of Beauty and Merchandise here on the West Coast, and it's FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology on the East Coast of New York. And when I went to that school, I was invited to a study trip to New York, where we got to basically pull up at like Estee Lauder, Avon. I got to see the factory where they make La Mer products. I got to talk to perfumers, and I really got to be in the room with these really powerful women in product development. And I had never seen anything like that before in my life. And I kind of knew after going on that trip that was going to be me. And there was no other Black girls, period. And however, these women, they kind of had this very strong like tenacity about them, and they were decision makers, and they were the people behind the scenes of like the number one products in the game. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's going to be me. But the issue is that when I went back to California, at the time, the hub of beauty was in New York. There were no big major players in California. And so me sort of creating my own lane, I started to work for these indie brands. Now it's a cool thing, you know, indie beauty is a big thing. But back then it was like, oh, you're going to go work for this like startup brand. And I'm like, yeah, that's all I had to choose from. So I ended up working with very entrepreneurial brands early in my career. So I worked with Dana Decker. I worked with Douglas Little, who owns Heretic now. You know, I worked and developed Spa Ritual, which is a well-known clean vegan, you know, spa brand. It was one of the first elevated clean spa brands. And so I got a lot of entrepreneurial experience early on, which ended up being a big blessing for me, because as I sort of moved up in my career, as I started taking bigger and bigger jobs at bigger and bigger brands, you have less and less exposure, if you know what I mean, in terms of the full business cycle of developing a product. They kind of just want you to focus on the formula, or focus on the claims, or focus on the package or whatever, and kind of stay in your lane as you get further in your career. But when I started off, I was wearing all these hats. You know, I was literally going to the manufacturer. I was flying to China, I was flying to Thailand, I was going everywhere to get these products done. And I was just like a one-woman show. And so I had to figure it out. So when it came time for me to make that decision, back to your question, you know, I had envisioned, I kind of knew when I went to Estee Lauder, after being there for maybe, you know, a couple of months, I could start to see that this was going to be my last like hurrah. I was like, okay, like I actually know a lot. When you get somewhere and after you've worked so hard in your career, when you get to that place and you're like, wow, I know a lot. And it's not to be like, you know, arrogant or anything like that, but I would be in meetings and people just didn't know like half the things I knew. And I was like, you know what? it's time. And I didn't want to be groomed to be a VP. I saw what that looked like, and it didn't look fun for me. It didn't look good. I was like, this is stressful. You have to fight with people all the time and all this corporate mess. And I was like, yeah, no, I think I want to design my life. I want to be able to wake up in the morning, have breakfast with my kids, my 2 boys. I want to be able to be present as a mom. I want to be able to get involved with projects and people that I care about. I want to be able to impact change. I want to be able to do so much more. And I think the biggest hurdle was the fear. So I'm the breadwinner in my family, like a lot of women my age. And it's like, okay, so do I give up this big corporate job and kind of like go off on my own? But my husband was very supportive. He was like, you know what? He was the only person who said, you know what? Do it. I believe in you. Just do it. And I did. And so I ended up getting a CBD client. CBD was blowing up in beauty a couple of years ago. It was the biggest thing. And I came highly recommended to help this brand sort of scale. And I, was an ingestible product. And so I went to my boss and I said, within the Estee Lauder Smashbox team, and I said, I'm going to resign. I literally told them I'm redesigning my life. And they were just like, oh, that's so great. And they're like, well, can we hire you as a consultant then? And so they were my second client. And so they were my client for a very long time, up until just recently. And it was a huge blessing because they were pretty much like, we see you, go ahead. And yeah, we still want to work with you in any capacity that we can. And I worked with them for almost 2 years as a consultant. And so it was believing in myself, letting go of the fear. But when I finally did, wow, it was like all of my good karma from like just being focused and just being a nice person along the way, it came back and just rained and poured. I had every single person in the industry picking up the phone, like, we're hearing you're consulting, Robin, you need to get over here. We need to work with you. And I've been really blessed and fortunate to have worked with some really cool, amazing, trailblazing, awesome brands. And so it's just the beginning.
That's amazing. That's so great that they were able to support you in your dream, because, a lot of the times when you are leaving a company, especially a big company like the one you were working for, those transitions aren't always as smooth. And so, I don't want to degrade the difficulty and the decision that it was to do this, but, it's really great that they were able to help you and that you had the courage to really, look yourself in the mirror and just say, hey, I believe in myself. I can make this happen, and just go out there and do it and chase your dream and chase your goal. And you achieved it and you're living it today. You're still doing this every day. I mean, like you said earlier, you're busier than ever. So that's a real blessing. It's a lot of work, but it's a real blessing, especially right now during the situation that the world is in. So kudos to you for having the courage to look yourself in the mirror and say, I can do this, and actually doing it. So
thank you. Yeah, I always get people hitting me up in the beauty industry, especially Black professional women, and they're like, I'm thinking about consulting too. And I tell people, do it now. Don't wait like I did. Do it now. And I'm like, because when I wanted to consult, I remember talking to a few people in my network, and they were like, no, don't do it. People don't pay their bills. Oh, it's going to be so hard for you to find clients. And like, I got hit with all this fear talk. But I realized, just like with other, entrepreneurs, you have to talk to people who are out there doing it and not people who are like not doing it. And so when I had finally found my rhythm and people would reach out, I would encourage them. I would say, look, what's the worst that could happen? It's not for you and you have to go back to corporate America. I mean, that's the worst thing that could happen. So bet on yourself. You have to do it once in life or you're always going to regret it. And for me, it was like that nagging feeling, like I had to get out, like I had to be free. And Yeah, so you just have to bet on yourself at least once in life, you know?
Of course, yes. That is
Yeah.
exactly how I felt about going into sales. Coming from a technical background, previously I was working as a researcher or a scientist, and then I switched over into sales. And for somebody, looking at a technical role, most technical people are not very social. They don't have very good people skills in terms of business or business experience. Whereas for me, I love business. I thrive in business situations. I thrive in people situations because I just love people. I love talking to people. I love those interactions. And so having to, do the same thing you did and really figure out, okay, can I really do this? Can I make this happen? And then taking that risk and seeing it pay off as it has thus far has been great. And I'm so happy that I did it, and I would never look back. So it's just been a really great experience, but that's awesome to hear that from you. Tell me a little bit about your time in FIDM, because I'm very curious, what that education structure looks like compared to a traditional school. And I'm sure a lot of people here want to know, what is it like going to a school like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's no guarantee. I'll say that because some people think, you go to FIDM and it automatically is a door into success, whether if you're in fashion or product or graphic or production or whatever. It was actually really hard. I had transferred out of school. I was going to a local college studying international business. And I was like 2 years in, and my sister picked up the phone. She was in law school at the time. She's still a practicing lawyer today. And she was like, "Oh, I found the school. You should look at it because they have a program that does what you want to do." And we were like, "What?" Like we were shook because we were like, there is actually a beauty program for product development. What? Like it was such an underground, whole, industry. So, I went to the little open house with a friend, and I just knew it was for me because I knew I had already saw myself sort of making products. And so I was like, if this is a way in or a way there, that's going to get me closer than going to like a generic school. And then me having to figure out, okay, who are the players, who's the network. I had enough wisdom to know that, okay, if whoever's like making Stila products, which was like a color cosmetic line at the time that was popular, or, a fragrance house perfumer was the teacher of the fragrance program, I had better chance of like actually getting into the industry. Like there were actual professors that were in beauty, marketing for the biggest beauty brands or developing products for the biggest beauty brands, or, traveling the world covering trends for the biggest beauty fashion brands. And so I got to meet those people and I was like, yeah, I need to be around these people. So for me, it was like, number one, getting the professional chops, knowing the terminology, knowing what's what, and then also the network. But I learned so much there. It was such a great experience for me. I come from a group of product developers that finished in that program in the early 2000s that are all very successful. And I think it has something to do with mindset. And then also we had a great mentor. Her name is Irene Cotter. Shout out to Irene Cotter. She was a very hardcore New York beauty executive that really straightened us out. And she was like, no, this is how you present. This is how you present your ideas. She came from Max Factor, if anyone's familiar, but she was like an OG in the industry. And that was my mentor in college. So the program was great. Beauty, it has evolved since I've gone there. Now they have a master's program. When I went there, they didn't have all that. It was literally just trade school for beauty, like fashion school. But now they have like an actual master's program for product development, which I think is awesome. They've extended it to me like, hey, do you want to come do it and like teach and all that stuff? So I have a great relationship with FIDM. I'm always networking with them, hiring people from FIDM. And, it was a lot of hard work. So some of the coursework was like, coming up with marketing plans, budgets, merchandising, which is like, okay, what is your product mix if you're at retail, if you're looking at a store shelf, right? Like what is that list of products? What is the SRP? your suggested retail price, what is your top cost of goods, what are your gross margins. So I know your business crowd out there will know all this stuff, but there's a lot of business that comes along in beauty, not just business, but also chemistry. So we had chemistry courses that we had to take. We had to understand, cosmetic chemistry. We had to take 2 years of it. And so although I don't do chemistry behind the bench, I work with chemists every single day. And technical people like you every single day. And there's a reason why I can talk the talk, because I, went through FIDM and also worked with brands that had a lab on site. So I had to go into the lab every single day and do that work. So cosmetic chemistry, you learn perfumery, you learn how to put together an accord. You have to know, what a top, what a middle and a bottom note is. You have to be able to deconstruct fragrances. You have to be able to speak perfumery. Not only that, graphic design and packaging design, right? Some people out there might be familiar with the brand Pattern Beauty. I got to work on that brand as a consultant, and people love the packaging, right? Packaging is a big part. Packaging is a big part of your product user experience. So at FIDM, they teach you how to do that. And shout out to the Pattern team. They have a wonderful creative team that does such a great job. So I'm just using that as an example. Like when we do what I went through with FIDM, it was very holistic in the sense of putting a product together, understanding trends. I had to really understand how to forecast, because when we make products, we're not making products for right now. We're making products for the future. So the stuff that I'm working on right now is going to launch in 2021, in 2022, in 2023 in some cases. So I have to know, like, okay, where is the economy? Where is the pain point? Who is the evolving brand or trend? Who is the evolving consumer? Gen Z, they're going to be a certain age by this point. They're going to have new pain points, and really understanding where the consumer is, where fashion trends are, where micro and macro trends are. So there's a lot of analytical work that happens. And so I learned a lot of that at FIDM. But I think my number one, probably top two experiences there was, number one, going to the New York study tour, which I had mentioned. So I was selected out of a group of students to go there, and we spent time there. I got to see a lot of behind the scenes action, and it really was transformative for me, because I was like, okay, I can see myself doing that. I actually really understood what it looked like day to day and the kind of decisions that you had to make in the boardroom when it pertained to a product. I remember sitting around the table with the executives from the MAC team, another brand that's owned by Estee Lauder, and, Jen Balbier, who's a legend in the industry, who just retired. She was leading that meeting and brought in her whole team, and they got to tell us about what they do. And wow. I was like, wow, I could really see myself doing this. And so I think out of that New York study tour, there was 2 students that was selected to come back to New York to attend the Fragrance Foundation Awards. And so they're known as the Fifi Awards. And in the fragrance industry, it's like the Oscars of the fragrance industry. This is when they say, best male fragrance of the year goes to Jean Paul Gaultier or whatever, right? So I was invited along with another student named Suzanne to go and attend and sit with the president of the Fragrance Foundation. And it was a red carpet event. I got to go there. I got to rub elbows with the best of the best in the fragrance industry. It was such an illuminating experience. Again, just being, a young Black professional, budding professional. So I had that type of energy when I was at FIDM. I was doing it, and then came back, grabbed that internship. I got an internship with a fine fragrance brand and have never looked back. I literally was doing internship work. As soon as I graduated, I think I graduated on a Saturday. On Monday morning, I had a full-time job, and I've been doing product development ever since.
Ooh, that is awesome. That's so amazing that there are schools like that exist, because I growing up in the Midwest, never heard about any of this stuff. Never. Yeah. This is not something that people talk about in the Midwest. every side of the United States is like its own bubble, right? You have the West Coast bubble. Everybody in California thinks the weather never changes, never rains. If you're in Southern California, it's all chill. In the Midwest, we all are focused on agriculture and medicine. That's our primary thing. And so it always blows my mind when I meet people like you and hear these experiences, because I just think like, man, if I knew that these things existed when I was younger, I would have probably gone through a program like this, because I love business. I love graphic design. I love talking and interacting with people and planning and structuring things. And, you're doing that just for a very specific industry. And so this is a great opportunity for people to hear about. So I'm happy that you're able to share more about this with the audience. And hopefully this will inspire somebody to look into the program and potentially attend, call you one day saying, hey, I'm about to graduate FIDM, do you want to have a chat or something? So we'll see how that plays out. But
all the time on LinkedIn, all the time. So I always get students, FIDM. There's also some other programs internationally over in London, and, in the diaspora, I have so many beautiful, like, African, like chemists and cosmetic chemists over in the UK area who are trying to break into product development. And so I always encourage them, come on, or like link them to a brand over there, because this is so many opportunities. Like, and I have to say, in terms of the path to product development, you can take the technical path. So you could start off as, a cosmetic chemist by trade, get bored with it, and then want to do the creative stuff. That is a path. And I have hired quite a few chemists as well. It's a different skill set, and it's kind of a unicorn situation. Not everybody can do it. Like you mentioned, like you have to kind of have that creative hat too, or it could be people coming from the marketing lens and, wanting to get their hands a little bit more dirty in the product and not just the marketing story. Yes. And then you have people who come straight through the path in terms of product development, who have like a formal product development background and education. So there's a couple, there's no like silver bullet, like, as long as you're passionate and you kind of understand the landscape and who call the network, all things are sort of possible for sure.
That's awesome. That's good to hear, because, for a lot of people, they think of careers like they think of med school, like becoming a doctor, right? It's like, I have to go to a four-year institution, I have to get good grades, I have to go to a medical school, be there for another 4 or 8 years, and then I'm a doctor. And that's not how everything works in life, right? There's multiple ways to get to things, just like there's multiple answers to one problem. So it's good to keep that in mind. So there you guys go. There's a nugget of wisdom for you. She just dropped the gem right there. A robin egg is what we'll call it right there. So I guess moving on, I know that, working in this industry can be very stressful, right? There's a lot of things that are going on, especially working in product or product management. There's a lot of moving pieces, and you got to be like the center node connecting everybody to everything. So what would you say are a couple obstacles that you've had to face in your career up to this point?
Yeah, I think one obstacle definitely is getting pigeonholed as that middle manager. So some of us, right, like we're really good at what we do. And however, I think being Black, if it's between me and like two older, more mature white women, they're going to want to promote one of them. This is in the corporate landscape anyway. And this has just been my experience, not to say, this is how it's for everybody. But I was really well known in the industry as being a big producer. And I got a lot of stuff done. I got a lot of launches done. I did double the work as everybody else, you know the story. And, ultimately I had leadership say, we'll keep building a team around you. How many people do you want? So I ended up having the biggest team in my product development, organization within one of the bigger brands that I worked on for a long time, versus the mature, older, white women. They would have like maybe one person or two people, but I had like 5 people. And the reason they were doing that is because they were pigeonholing me as being that middle manager. I would train everyone. I would teach everyone. Everybody liked me. They liked working for me. They loved, we had fun. And they didn't want to elevate me to that senior director level for a long time. And so I had to really, really look at that, even though I liked that particular company, and break out of that. And I ended up going to Estee Lauder. And then when I got there, I was like, oh gosh, like I can't do this anymore after this, But at the same time, looking back, I would say to the audience, be careful of that. Like, know your worth. I know it's hard, but it's like, just because they're, allowing you to hire all these people and they're giving you all this work and all this responsibility, it could be a pigeonhole. Like, let's just keep giving that person double the amount of work because they can do it. And let's pay them less. You know what I mean? So I think that pigeonhole and middle manager, that was like a 5-year period that I went through that was really hard, because I kept seeing people being elevated that I knew I was doing better work than them, and I knew I was more productive than them, and I was very confused. And I also, in the corporate space, have to say that, I went through some pretty traumatic, racism. And, looking back, I was literally called into HR because one of my subordinates went to HR. This is somebody who was a peer who ended up getting demoted and had to report to me, who was like 25 years older than me and white. So she went to HR and said that I thought I was a queen. Think about that. That was literally the complaint. I was like, what?
Wow.
They were like, well, she says that you think you're a queen and that you think you just can sit on your throne and tell people what to do. And I'm like, I'm her boss, number one. And number two, I thought about it. I was like, I got complained on for thinking that I was somebody. Like, for thinking I was somebody, pretty much. So you can be really good at your job. You can really be great with people. But as soon as you think you're a little bit too good, or you think you're somebody, like, you're out of line, And so I went through a lot. And so I think, and that's why I do so much in terms of outreach and mentorship. And, I talk to those Indian girls. I talk to, the Southeast Asian. I talk to the young Black girl just getting there. I talk to them because I know how it is being, the only one. And so I think looking back, I had a lot of really wonderful allies, right, that I learned from. But at the same time, I went through a lot. Like, I have some scar tissue, I think, from dealing. And so with that said, hopefully I answered your question, but I would say that was a big obstacle, being pigeonholed, the racism, and then also trying to figure out a way to be a developer without the distinction of big multi-conglomerate brands on my resume in the beginning. So making that choice to stay on the West Coast, which I'm so glad I did, because now the West Coast is the hub for beauty.
Yes.
Now the West Coast is the hub for indie beauty, for independent beauty, and also clean beauty. We have the best clean beauty brands based here on the West Coast. And that's like the number one growing sector within beauty. So I was, I'm glad that I did that. But at the time, I saw some of my friends, move to New York, and they're getting those jobs with those big brands that are now, us little brands are coming to eat their lunch now. So it's kind of just this whole flip mode thing. But at the time I was like, yeah, I'm just going to have to push through. And I did, but I thought at the time it was like a hurdle. But now I'm glad I did go through that, because you need to have the entrepreneurial skills to push a brand through to success today. We can't just know one thing. We have to know multiple things. Like you said, we're the middle, we're the North Star. Product development is the North Star of a product launch. You can't do it without it. So it's like, we know all the moving pieces and we juggle all the moving pieces at the same time. And so I'm glad for my obstacles, even though I went through them, if that sounds weird.
No, it's good, because it's a learning lesson, right? Like, each obstacle you face was a was an opportunity for you to learn something about yourself and learn something about your environment. And I think that's the way you approach them, is you didn't necessarily look at them as, well, what's wrong with me, and really focusing on that as much as you acknowledge your part in it, and then also turned around and said, okay, well, what are they seeing that I don't see? And how can I grow from this? And I think that's important, is being able to acknowledge the environment you're in, your position, your role, and then how you can grow. And I think that's what you did, and you did that. To me, it sounds like you did a great job of it. And if people are calling you a queen, then you know what you are. You're a Black queen. You're a strong Black queen, and you live in it. All right.
Yeah, and that was that was the pre-Fenty moment. We call it in beauty. We determine Rihanna's launch as the Fenty moment, because that is really when the narrative changed within corporate culture as it related to diversity and the need for products that were diverse. And that was the business case that we needed. And so prior to that, it didn't really matter. It didn't really matter. They were like, we're not going to sell that dark shade. We'll make it to be like cute, but we're not going to sell it. We're not going to do very much volume. But then Rihanna came through and it was like she took everybody's lunch, and they were like, oh, let's come out with 50 Shades right now. Let's do that. And so that was the beginning to, oh, Robin, maybe we should bring you in this meeting and talk a little bit more about products. And it was kind of too little too late at that point. That's when I already started to make up my mind that I'm going to just design my own life and take this on the road. But yeah, that was pretty recent, you know what I mean? So before that, I'd never made products. Let me say this, as a Black product developer, I have never made products for myself, except for when I was working on Pattern Beauty. That was the first time in my 16-year career at that time that I was making products for me, literally as the consumer. Prior to that, it was always someone else. And that was okay for me too. This is part of the job. Like, we're creating products for, middle-aged white women who have dark spots or whatever the deal is, right? Or redness or double processed hair or whatever it is. And that's cool, you know what I mean? But that was literally my first time where I was the consumer. And if you think about that, that really says a lot, about how far we still have to go in beauty. So
definitely is a lot of room for growth. And I think people are, like you said, people are recognizing it now, and they're really trying to push for that. And I'm happy to see it. I'm happy it's happening in general. It might be a little late, but at least it's happening.
True.
It's never on your time. It's always on God's time. So
true.
It'll be when it needs to be. Now, thinking about some of those obstacles and some of those hurdles, also I want to emphasize, the things that excite you about your role. So what are the couple of things that get you out of bed in the morning and wake you up and just say, I'm ready to manage some products, and I'm ready to run this business and just take over this world?
I would say I love the excitement of new concept development. And when I have a brand that is really dope, I might have a brand that is like the number one brand in beauty, call me literally a founder and say, look, I need a hero product and I need you to help me with it. And it's those things that excite me. And it's not just, because they're a legit brand, but it's just like getting the global recognition in beauty and people know to call me for certain things. It feels really good because they call me for the clean. They want to do clean, high-tech products that work, that have a lot of intention behind them, that feel very special. They know to come to me for that. And I've been sort of setting myself up, like I saw myself as that. And I think what's exciting is now other people within the industry see that in me as well. And then I'm attracting those projects. So I'm no longer working on things that I'm like, oh God, another thing that I don't want to work on. But that's been the road. But now I'm here and I'm attracting like really cool things that I want to work on and that I need for my own life that can solve my own problem. And I love the brands that we work with. They're beloved. They're like so good. And so it's just been, I think just being a part of this new narrative in beauty is super exciting. That's another point, is that the narrative of beauty is changing. So we have been marketed to for a very long time that, we have to uphold a certain beauty ideal, right? Like you have to look a certain way. You need this brightening cream to lighten your skin a bit. You need this product for your hair so it could define your curls, elongate your hair, all these things that are subconsciously really saying that you're not worthy how you are. These are classic beauty narratives that are very psychological in the meaning for both men and women. And so now that's changing because all of these Gen Z brands, they're not into that shit at all. So they're like, nope, disrupting that narrative. We're going to tell the truth and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about, skin positivity. Look, not everybody has flawless skin. Some of us have acne. Like what's good. So I'm so excited about those brands and that are really here to solve real problems in a really authentic way. And the brands that want to elevate that experience for the consumer because they're worth it. And so I love being able to really marry my core belief of healing intention, holistic lifestyle, all that stuff to my experience of product development and helping these brands move that narrative forward. And so that's probably the most exciting thing about it. And I love when people are like picking up the phone and they want to collaborate with me or they want to work with me, or they, I get a lot of like youngsters who like find me on LinkedIn and want to intern or whatever. And that's always very exciting as well, to continue to give as well, like information and just like hold that door open for the next product developer who like wants to do what I'm doing. So that's super exciting too.
Wow, what an honor. What an honor it is to be that door holder, and you've earned it. You worked really hard to get to the position that you're in. So nobody better than you to hold that door open. And I hope some people watching this will walk through that door. So
thank you.
let's give them a couple gems here on the end. Just think back to young Robin back in the house selling the Avon. If there was a customer that was future you right now, what would you say to young Robin looking back? What advice would you give her?
Yeah, definitely stay focused. Put your blinders on. People say take your blinders off. Put your blinders on. Stay focused, tunnel vision, because there's going to be so many people in your ear along the way. Oh, you're doing that. Why are you doing that? You should do this. And you end up, you're impressionable when you're younger. I'm not as impressionable now, but I say stay focused. And now, because the new youth, the generation now, they have access. And so they can see people like me easily. It was hard for me to see people like me before, but you can go on LinkedIn, you can go on Instagram, you can find people in your profession. And it's like, start networking and understanding that roadmap and, get on that road early. You don't have to wait till you're in college. You can, start to figure out how to formulate a product now. You can go on YouTube, right? Like, get a book, read it. Like there's so much you can do now. It's just like endless. So I think I would say stay focused, because it was hard for me to stay focused because I saw a lot of things going on and I was like, oh, that looks cool. That looks cool. Maybe I should do fragrance. Maybe I should do color cosmetics. And I now know that I never needed to box myself into any sort of category within beauty. Like I could do it all, and I ended up doing it all. So that used to really stress me out. Like, oh, am I going to do color, or am I going to do hair? Am I going to do? So in the end, it didn't even matter because I ended up doing it all. So I would say, don't focus on that. Just stay focused on the end. And also, best advice, I think, is, imagine who you are, imagine your future self. And like, what does she or he look like? What are they doing? What is their routine? Where do they live? What is the lifestyle? And like, it's not so much about what is the work and how much money and how did it take to get there. You kind of have to just envision it. Like, oh, this feels good to me in my heart, and understand that. And I actually had that same sort of meditation for myself before I decided that I was going to go off on my own. And I imagined myself in the future, and I imagined the life that I wanted to live. As I mentioned, I wanted to have time with my kids. I wanted to be present. That was something that was a big deal for me. So I literally journaled it. I said, I want to be able to make as much money as I'm making now or more, work from home, be present as a mom, not have to travel all the time, blah, 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 blah. And within 2 weeks, I got the call and they're like, can you help us build this brand? I know you work for Estee Lauder, but hey, like, what would it take to get you? And I just broke open my journal and I was like, can you do all these things? And they're like, yeah, bet. So it was that easy. So I think you have to start imagining yourself in the future. Like, what's your future self doing? And how are they thriving? And like, work towards that versus working towards all this other cookie cutter stuff. Work towards your happiness. That's key. And decide, and choose your happiness versus, a cookie cutter definition of happiness.
That's a word. That's a word right there. I'm gonna go ahead and put that right up here. That is a word. Y'all can see it on the screen. You know what it is. You just heard it right there, folks. It don't get no better than that. And I just want to add one thing to what you said too, and I want to emphasize it, is writing down things that you want to accomplish in your life really do change the outcome. There's something about physically writing it down that just changes it in your mind. I don't understand why that is, but I do the same thing. I write out the goals that I want to see. I write out, where I want to see myself in 5 to 10 years from now. And you get there. You may not understand the how, but you know the why, and you will get yourself there. So just write it down, guys. Just write it down and work towards it. Be consistent. Agree. That's what you can do. Agree. Well, that is everything that I wanted to ask you. I feel like you dropped a many gems on us, a many robin eggs on us all over the place. A couple words here and there. So I'm happy. I hope everyone out there is happy. So at this point, I'll open the floor up to you. Do you want to give any shout outs or closing thoughts to the audience?
Shout out to you, Kenton, for doing this, because I think it's just like so dope for us to do this and make these platforms for ourselves and our communities. It's like, no, you can't wait for anybody else to do it. Look, we're going to have to do it. So thank you for being that leader, because it's so important, I think, for people to have access and exposure. I think exposure changes everything. It could just be literally somebody watching this video and saying, oh, okay, I didn't even know that was a career. I want to do that. And so I think it's so important, the work that you're doing. So thank you for seeing this need and making it happen and prioritizing it as a young Black professional as yourself. So shout out to you for that. And, I think shout out for me. I'd love to always just note that I've gotten to where I've gotten because I listen to I always say I listen to old people. I've had some wonderful teachers and mentors throughout my career. Dr. Peter Matravers, Dr. Bob Bianchini. I would be the one person who would sit down in these meetings and actually listen to what these people were saying. And they would be dropping all these gems and everybody else would be, here they go. They're on their tangent, rolling their eyes. But I would be that person. I would be listening. I'd be absorbing everything they would be saying. And then I would then channel their lessons into, you know, my strategies for product launches. And then I would come back to them and say, hey, remember that technology you talked about? Okay, well, here it is. And they'd be like, okay. And so they poured more into me because they saw me using the knowledge. And that has been all of the difference. I think when people come in and they're like young and arrogant and they're like, you know, old people are like not cool or whatever, they're like annoying. Don't be that way. Sit with your elders in your career environment and soak it in. There's wisdom there. They've done it already, and they have the keys. So I love, you know, some of my boomers, my boomers who have taught me everything that I know. And so I just want to say that, you know, I know we're in a world of ageism now and all this stuff. And okay, boomer is a trend. And think about that and just know that these people carry so much wisdom and they want somebody to pour it into, and maybe you can be that person and, you know, take it to the next level.
There y'all have it. There y'all have it. Once again, Miss Robin Watkins is here delivering the word to you one day at a time, one word at a time for you. Here we go. So thank you so much, Robin. I really appreciate you coming onto the platform.
Thanks.
It's been great having you. And once again, as I always do, I'm gonna look here and tell y'all to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel because it helps. It helps more people see these videos, this content. It helps give me feedback to know, okay, what you're doing actually is working. It's helping people. It matters. So I appreciate it. It helps you. It helps me. And ultimately, that's how we're going to continue to grow. So if you could help me out there, I'd appreciate it. And also, go ahead and look in the description. I put a lot of links in there. There's resources to tons of stuff in there for you to check out. You know, there's career placement tests, there's personality tests, so you can figure out who you are, what kind of personality you have, and what career may fit you best. There's scholarships in there. There's, you know, internships, opportunities to gain experience for free or get paid to gain experience. So you never know what's down there, but I advise you to check it out. And just to close again, this has been another episode of the #Black Professionals Project. And we want to thank Miss Robin, and we will see you guys as we always do every Monday. So thank you. Have a good rest of your week. Goodbye.
Thank you.